Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, we'd like to ask you to silence all mobile phones, beeping watches, pagers, or any other electronic devices that may interrupt the performance. We'd also like to take the time to recognize our Associate Chair, Alan Professor. Alan. Without further ado, please enjoy Logan's Ladies.
She descended from the ceiling of the Mobile Civic Center in Mobile, Alabama, riding atop a crystal chandelier. And she was adorned in jewels and fur, and she looked like some sort of snow queen goddess. The lights, the dancing, the acrobats, and so many costume changes. I was hooked. It was my first theatrical event. The first time I had witnessed a diva. Flash forward to the 7th grade, when I walked into the Foley Public Library in Foley, Alabama. And there, on the 3rd floor, in the autobiography section of the nonfiction section, on the 3rd aisle, on the 4th shelf, was a book titled Patty Lupone, a Memoir. I finished it in 2 days. I was in the 7th grade. Anyways, it was right then and there that I knew that I desperately wanted to be a part of this world known as musical theater. And Patty Lupone was also my introduction to the incredible women of the musical theater stage, both the characters and the women who brought them to life. Or as I like to call them, Logan's Ladies. They're the women who give me hope that someday I'll be able to say, I'm just a Broadway baby, walking off my tired feet, pounding 42nd Street to be in a show. Oh, Broadway baby, learning how to sing and dance, dreaming of my one big chance to be in a show. Oh, gee, I'd like to be on some marquee, all twinkling lights, a spark to pierce the dark, from Battery Park to Washington in heights. Someday, maybe, all my debts will be repaid, maybe. Hell, I'd even play the maid to be in a show. Hey there, Mr. Producer. Yeah, I'm talking to you, sir. I don't need a lot, just what I've got. Plus a tube of grease paint and a follow spot. Oh, someday, maybe. I'm making rounds all afternoon, eating at a greasy spoon to save on my dough. Oh, at my tiny flat, it's just my cat, a bed and a chair. Still, I'll stick it till I'm on a bill all over Times Square. Someday, maybe, if I stick it long enough, I may get to strut my stuff, working for a nice man like a Ziegfeld or a wise man in a great big Broadway show. Okay, so maybe I lied just a little bit. That wasn't exactly my first theatrical experience. An interest in this world developed much earlier, at the age of 4, when my mother had the brilliant idea to rent from the local movie gallery Andrew Lloyd Webber's filmed production of his long-running smash hit musical, Cats! To be honest, I didn't know what the hell I was watching. Cats who were people, people who were cats, who were also singing and dancing. But I was riveted. I watched it every day. I watched it so much that my mother finally just decided to buy the damn thing on VHS. Now, you see, at the end of the film, when the credits would run, they would show each individual actor's picture, along with their character name and their actual name. Now, who was the actor that stood out to me the most? Well, it was the actor that was playing the cat named Tumble Brutus. He's one of the ones that doesn't have a song. Anyways, you know what his name was? Fergus Logan. You ever heard of him? Me neither. But he had Logan in his name, which, according to my 4-year-old logic, meant that because his name was Logan, because he had Logan in his name, and my name was Logan, I could do what he was doing. Oh, my poor mother had to fast forward all the way to the end when I would watch it, just so I could watch the credits first. Then she'd have to rewind all the way back so I could watch the film in its entirety. Oh, and you know who else was in that film? Elaine Paige, in the role of Grisabella. Now, of course, at 4 years old, I had no clue how big of a deal Elaine Paige was. But that didn't stop me from collapsing onto my bedroom floor every time she belted out, "Touch me!" Can you guess which song I'm going to sing next? Well, too bad. Alan says we can't have a sad song this early in the show. So, I thought, well, you know, there was another song that I used to sing all the time at 4 years old. I mean, all the time. And I would give my best, I mean my best attempt at the choreography. I mean, I performed it everywhere. In my bedroom, at the grocery store, and now, for you all tonight. McCavities his know him if you saw him, for his eyes are sunken in. His brow is deeply lined with thought, his head is highly domed. His coat is dusty from neglect, his whiskers are uncombed. He sways his head from side to side with movements like a snake. And when you think he's half asleep, he's always wide awake! McCavity, McCavity. cavities not there. There's no one like a cavity. He's a fiend in feline shape, a monster of depravity. You may meet him in a by street, you may see him in a square. But when a crime's discovered, then macavity, 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 macavity. A crime's discovered, then macavity's not there. So after the cats thing, there was the Cher thing, and then there was a brief stint as a professional Elvis impersonator in elementary school. And then there was singing in the children's choir at the First Baptist Church of Foley. So the combination of cats, Cher, Elvis, and the Baptist Church made it quite apparent that performing was something that I just had to do. And you know, it didn't help. It didn't help at all that there were an exorbitant amount of child stars on the Disney Channel, which I watched religiously. I desperately wanted to be one of them. I mean, come on. I'm just as good as any of them. I could do what they were doing. I'd be a sensation. The best there's ever been. 'Cause I'm the greatest star. I am by far. But no one knows it. Wait, they're gonna hear a voice, a silver flute. Their cheering toot. Yeah, he's terrific. When I expose it. Now can't you see to look at me that I'm a natural Camille? Where is she? There she is. As Camille, unjust female. I've so much to offer. Kid, I know I'd be divine because I'm a natural cougher. Suddenly got it, not a lump. I'm a great big clump of talent. They'll bend in half. Did you ever hear the story about the traveling salesman? 1,000 jokes. Stick around for the jokes. 1,000 faces. I reiterate, when you're gifted, then you're gifted. These are facts. I got no axe to grind. Hey, what are they? Blind in all of the world so far. I'm the greatest star. My mother and father didn't really know what to do with me, so they made the most logical choice. They signed me up for City League soccer. It's the hit with pizzazz. I ended up on 2 losing soccer teams. It's all ginger and jazz. Next was basketball. Who is this glamorous ass? My coaches always told me to give the ball to Lonzo, the best player on our team, who's an American Beauty Rose. Next was baseball, with an American Beauty nose. Our coach was this big burly man, and he had the phrase, "rude dogs" tattooed on his arm, and 10 American Beauty toes. I let the ball hit me so I could get to first base. The target and one shot, one gunshot, and bam! I hated playing sports! One day, my mother, summer after 3rd grade, she sat me down and she told me that I was to begin acting lessons at a local theater in town. And part of my instruction was being cast in their production of The Jungle Book. It was my first theatrical production, and I was cast in the ensemble as a frog. ensemble as a frog? You bet I was. Forget about being Mowgli. I was the frog. I was going to make damn sure I was the best damn frog in that jungle. Hello, Broadway. Here I am. I'm the greatest star. I am by far, but no one knows it. That's why I was born. I'll blow my horn till someone blows it. I'll light up like a light, right up like a light. I'll flicker then flare up. Oh, the world's gonna stare up. Looking down, you'll never see me. Try the sky, 'cause that'll be me. I can make them cry, I can make them sigh. Someday they'll clamor for my drama. Have you guessed yet? Who's the best yet? If you ain't, well, I'll tell you one more time. You can bet your last dime in all of the world so far. I'm the greatest star. That production began my 9-year journey with Starlight School of the Arts under the instruction of a mother-daughter duo by the name of Miss Mandy and Miss Lacey. Now, there's no doubt that I would not be here tonight if it were not for them. I truly owe them oh so much. However, there were two very different generations of performers, and I mean with wildly different tastes. So, Miss Mandy was more at home with Rodgers and Hammerstein and Meredith Willson. Miss Lacey was more at home with Jason Robert Brown and Stephen Sondheim. So between the two of them, I had quite the education. Now you see, Miss Mandy, she would drag us kids to just about every festival in town to promote whatever musical we were doing. Well, you know, it usually resulted in us performing on flatbed trailers and blistering Alabama heat. But Miss Mandy was a trooper. You know, one of my fondest memories is her yelling at us kids, mid-production number, to move over! Just so that we could be seen better in the light. She taught us how to perform with smiles while being extremely terrified at the same time. Now, there'll be more on Miss Lacey later, but I thought I should mention the both of them before we go much further, because there's no doubt how much they mean to me. I mean, they noticed me. They helped me. They made a life in the theater a reality. Now, I suppose I can't do a show about Logan's Ladies without mentioning the most important lady in my life, who happens to be sitting in row G, my mother. Now, to give you a little background, no one in my family had an interest or knew anything about musical theater. I was the first. So how did this feisty spitfire of a woman, whose biggest passions are college football and NASCAR, become a lover of musical theater? Well, because she loves me. Yeah. See, my parents have always been extremely supportive of me and my dreams and my ambitions, even if they often have very little clue as it is to what I'm doing. to give you an example, I was watching the film version of West Side Story with my parents recently, and every time the characters would begin to sing, my parents would start talking to each other. So finally, I was like, hey guys, watch the movie. And my mother, true to form, responded with, but all they're doing is singing. But, you know, she has always been my biggest fan. I mean, through hell or high water, she was going to make sure I got to rehearsals on time growing up. And she's always been a bit of a stage mom, but in the best sense possible. Mama Rose light is how I like to think of it. So anyways, very light. So now, a song from Mama. One that I think suits her perfectly well. Ask any of the chickies in my pen. They'll tell you I'm the biggest mother hen. I love them all and all of them love me. Because the system works, the system called reciprocity. Got a little motto, always sees me through. When you're good to mama, mama's good to you. There's a lot of favors I'm prepared to do. You do one for mama, she'll do one for you. They say that life is tit for tat, and that's the way I live. So I deserve a lot of tat for what I've got to give. Don't you know that this hand washes that one too? When you're good to mama, mama's good to you. If you want my gravy, hello my ragu. I set up for mama, she'll get hot for you. When they pass that basket, folks contribute too. You put in for mama, she'll put out for you. Folks atop the ladder are the ones the world adores. So boost me up my ladder, kid, and I'll boost you up yours. Let's all stroke together like the Princeton crew. When you're stroking mama, mama's stroking you. So what's the one conclusion that I can bring this number to? When you're good to mama, mama's got to. Finding a creative outlet for me in Foley, Alabama. If you don't know much about Foley, Alabama, it's about as far south as you can go before you end up in the Gulf of Mexico. It's a place where people love all things fried and prefer their tea sweet. It's a place where you'll find a church and a fried chicken place on just about every street corner. It's just a little bitty pissant. Nothing too high tone. Just lots of goodwill. Maybe one small thrill. But there's nothing dirty going on. Well, that's not exactly true. I mean, I'm sure there were lots of dirty things going on. But you'd never know it because people in the town like to keep that sort of thing very secret. So what you did know, you learned from local gossip. It was a very interesting place to grow up. The positive aspect was I was taught manners and how to work hard, how to be a positive member of a community. The downside was that there wasn't much emphasis on theater, or any art for that matter. Actually, there wasn't much emphasis on anything beyond Foley, Alabama. And for a while it seemed like closed-minded thinking was the only type of thinking that existed. And as I mentioned before, people in the town liked to talk. And it wasn't long before I became what they were talking about. You see, I was a guy who was in love with musical theater. And we all know what that meant. So middle school was the absolute worst. I dreaded going to school every morning. I was paralyzed with fear because I didn't want to have to deal with the bullshit from my peers. So how did I survive? Well, I had great parents. I had great teachers. And I had great friends. And another thing that put my soul at ease was coming home every afternoon and singing Elton John at the top of my lungs.
Love it.
Yes. My parents must have heard me in my bedroom singing Tiny Dancer at least about. But you know, I also had another big hero. And by the way, this was not helping my case of getting made fun of in middle school at all. But here we go. My other big hero was Patti LuPone! Yes. As I mentioned before, it was her memoir that changed my life and made the idea of having a life in the theater a reality. Now, you see, Patti LuPone was, you know, of course, my introduction to so many ladies, but at the time, Patti LuPone was my patron saint of musical theater. And I'm not even Catholic. But reading her memoir was a religious experience for me. And you know, I encountered Miss LuPone's divinity when I saw her perform for the first time on the 2008 Tony Awards in the role of Mama Rose in the musical Gypsy, singing the Act 1 closer, Everything's Coming Up Roses! Oh. Now, at this point in my theatrical endeavors, I had no clue what Gypsy was, or what it was about. But what I did know was that what I was watching was thrilling. I mean, I had never seen someone perform like that, with such reckless abandon and such gusto. I watched it over and over and over on YouTube. It became a ritual. My private moments with a goddess. So Patti, this one's for you. I had a dream about you, baby. It's gonna come true, baby. They think that we're through, but baby, you'll be swell, you'll be great. Gonna have the whole world on a plate. Starting here, starting now, honey, everything's coming up roses. Clear the decks, clear the tracks. You've got nothing to do but relax. Blow a kiss, take a bow, honey, everything's coming up roses. Now's your inning, stand the world on its ear, set it spinning, and that'll be just the beginning. Curtain up, like the lights, you've got nothing to hit but the heights. You'll be swell, you'll be great, I can tell. You can do it. All you need is a hand. We can do it. Mama is gonna see to it. Curtain up, light the lights. You've got nothing to hit but the heights. You'll be swept. Wait and see. There's the bell. Follow me, and nothing's gonna stop us till we're through. Honey, everything's coming. Up roses and daffodils. Everything's coming. Up sunshine and Santa Claus. Everything's gonna be bright lights and lollipops. Everything's coming. Up roses for me and for you. And I have no clue where we are right now.
Just right middle school.
I did survive middle school, and you know what happened after that? I was off to high school, but I wasn't quite sure what to expect. Well, actually, I was expecting 4 years of the continued hell that I received in middle school. But the summer before my freshman year, I went to this theater camp, and I was surrounded by people who were interested in what I was interested in. And for the first time in my life, I felt cool. I mean, it was just what I needed. I basically decided right then and there that no matter how people reacted to who I was just going to say, fuck it, and keep on pursuing my dream. Now, I entered high school with confidence and determination. And you know what? It paid off. Because people started treating me a lot better. You know, I was able to be myself. And that meant that I was able to pursue this theater thing a lot more seriously. And that began my instruction with Miss Lacey. Now one day, she sat me down and she said, so, you want to pursue this theater thing for real? Then you need to get yourself into a BFA program in musical theater. You want to get into a BFA program? Then you need to work on your training. You need to work on your technique. And you need to read more plays, and you need to read more musicals, because there are kids who come from areas where theater is much more prevalent, and they are way ahead of you! Now, I'm telling you, she tough-loved me to death, but she knew that it's what I needed. She knew that I loved having something to prove and something to strive for. So, of course, my reply was, I am your humble servant, teach me your ways. And you know what she did? She brought me 2 big bags. Now one was a bag of plays, and the other was a bag of cast albums. Now, the plays were great, don't get me wrong, but those cast albums rocked my world. Oh my goodness, so much great music for so many great shows. And not just that, I was introduced to so many more ladies. I mean, Patti LuPone was just the tip of the iceberg. So I would sit in my room, popping CDs into my CD player. And what a joy it was to hear who I was going to be introduced to next. Ethel Merman!
Woo!
In olden days, a glimpse of stocking was looked on as something shocking, but now, God knows, anything goes. Cheetah Rivera. I like to be in America, okay, by me in America, everything free in America, for Miss Monkey in America. Gwen Verdon. Whatever Lola wants, Lola gets. loved all around, but I never heard it singing. No, I never heard it at all till there was you. Carol Channing. Hello, Manny. Well, hello, Louie. It's so nice to be back home where I belong. Angela Lansbury. Would I make the same mistakes if he walked into my life today? If that boy with the bugle walked into my life today. Bernadette Peters! Just kidding, no, there's Elaine Stritch first! Right! There'll be more on her later. Bernadette Peters! Well, there are worse things than staring at the water on a Sunday. There are worse things than staring at the water on a Sunday. I can never understand those lyrics. Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth. I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy how you hurt your false brother. I hope you're happy. I hope you're proud how you grovel in submission to feed your own ambition. And of course, on that original cast recording of Evita. Oh yeah. Hattie Lupone! Don't cry for me, Argentina. The truth is I never left you. All through my wild days, my mad existence, I kept my promise from a distance. Applaud now. So, my mind was flooded with the music of these shows, and my free time was spent watching the glorious performances of these songs. I mean, I watched them all the time. You know, I could not wait until I was pursuing an education in something that I absolutely loved. Meanwhile, I had to suffer through trigonometry and statistics and biology and history classes where, by the way, theater history is never mentioned. I mean, I wanted to be with my people, fellow artists engaged in a pursuit to create and inspire. Meanwhile, I was sitting in a high school classroom daydreaming of being a star. There's gotta be something better than this. There's gotta be something better to do. And when I find me something better to do, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get out and do it. No more griping, I have had it. No more grumbling, mumbling, wailing, sighing, weeping, moaning, whining, crying. There's gotta be some life better than this. There's gotta be some good reason to live. And when I find me some kind of life I can live, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get out and live it! See, I auditioned, I ended up auditioning for 3 BFA musical theater programs. Yes, you heard that right. I only auditioned for 3 BFA musical theater programs. Apparently, I had a lot of faith in myself. But it paid off because I was accepted into 2 out of the 3. And I made my decision to become a TCU horned frog. I was so excited. I could not leave high school fast enough. And you know what? This acceptance letter was so much more than an achievement. It was validation. It meant that my dream could be a reality, despite coming from a very humble theater background and having so much to learn. It meant that I was on my way to becoming somebody. I was going nearly 700 miles away from home to pursue what I loved. And oh, I just couldn't wait to rub it in the faces of all those who doubted me. If they could see me now, that little gang of mine. I'm eating fancy chow and drinking fancy wine. I'd like those stumble bums to see for a fact the kind of first-rate, top-drawer chumps I attract. All I can say is, wow, we look at where I am. I'm landed, pow, right in a pot of jam. What a setup, holy cow. They'd never believe it if my friends could see me now. I made it! I'm here! Texas Christian University! Oh my God. I'm in college. I'm on my own. All at once. The room is green. Bells are pealing. Butterflies are fluttering inside. Toto, we're not in Foley, Alabama. This is all very new to me. This is all very fine. This so sunny-like, kind of funny-like, milk and honey-like feeling of mine. This is all very new to me, and I'm knocking on wood. What to do, what to say, how to make it go on this way. Wish that I understood, 'cause it feels oh so good. Well, at least in the beginning it did. You see, it wasn't long before I realized that college was not the big party that everyone made it out to be. And I was not adapting as swimmingly as I thought I would. Let's start with academics. So I had an 8 a.m. class. Gets worse. Monday, Wednesday, Friday in topics in mathematics. Needless to say, I hardly ever went. Oh well, onwards and upwards, right? You'll be swell. You'll be great. Gonna have the whole world on a plate. So my living situation was an absolute nightmare. And it was all because of my roommate. My roommate. The worst smell I had yet to encounter in my natural-born life. Now, don't get me wrong. He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. But the smell was ungodly. Oh. And as if the smell weren't enough, he peed in our sink. Regularly. Starting here, Holly, everything's coming up. So I had this girlfriend for like 2 years. And instead of following everyone's advice to break up before I went away to college, we hung on. I should have followed everyone's advice. Why did I do it? What did it get me? What did it get me? Give them love, and what does it get you? What does it get you? At least I was making friends. Well, sort of. Well, not really. You see, a lot of the fellow theater people had come from areas that were very rich in theater. They had attended high schools that put on spectacular productions, and they were so talented, way more talented than I was. And I felt inferior. I mean, I felt like I had so much to prove, but I didn't know exactly how to go about doing it. All your life, and what does it get you? Thanks a lot, and out with the garbage, they take bows, and you're batting 0. Everything was closing in on me. I didn't know how to juggle my schoolwork, my relationship, making friends. I mean, everything just kept coming at me, and nothing was slowing down. I didn't sign up for this. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I mean, it was supposed to be better. I was supposed to feel better. This was supposed to be my big chance. Well, someone tell me, when is it my turn? Don't I get a dream for myself? Starting now, it's gotta be my turn. Gateway world, get off of my runway. Starting now, I bet 1,000. This time, boys, I'm taking the bows, and everything's coming up. Stop. Stop. I said stop! Nothing was coming up anything. And I was completely and utterly alone. And for the first time in my life, I questioned whether this theater thing was something that I actually wanted to do. I mean, I returned home for Christmas break, and I had no desire to go back to TCU in the spring. Now, I never voiced this to anyone, so I suppose in a way I really did want to go back, but you know, it seemed pointless. Nothing had gone the way that I thought it would. I mean, it hadn't. It sucked. And then I got to thinking. Despite how disastrous my first semester seemed, it had actually gone fairly well. I mean, I had passed all my classes. I was cast in a show. I mean, I did have friends to some degree. And, most importantly, I had survived my first semester of college. And then I got to thinking about Miss Mandy and Miss Lacey, and all the time and the effort that they put into me, and all the faith that they had in me. Why shouldn't I have that same amount of faith in myself? And then another thought crept in. I thought to myself, WWPD. What would Patty do? Yes, what would my patron saint of musical theater, Patty Lupone, do in this instance? And then all of a sudden, I heard her So, after this epiphany, I realized that shit being hard was just going to be a way of life. I mean, it wasn't the first time I'd been met with adversity. I'd been climbing uphill towards my dream my whole life. So, I dusted myself off and I put myself right back in the game. I came back to TCU with a new attitude and a revived spirit. I got a new roommate. Who didn't smell. And who didn't pee in my sink. My girlfriend dumped me. Well, that kind of sucked. But in the long run, it ended up being a good thing. And to top it off, I'm going to need some water for this. And to top it off, I was cast as Nicely Johnson in Frank Lesser's musical comedy masterpiece, Guys and Dolls. Ah, what a joy to get to sing that thrilling 11 o'clock number, Sit Down, You're Rocking the Boat, as a freshman. It was as if my life had made a complete 180 in that one semester. But you know, over the course of Guys and Dolls, I was introduced to another lady. The character of Miss Adelaide. Now, I truly believe that Sit Down, You're Rocking the Boat is the best song in Guys and Dolls. But if I had to pick a second best, it would have to be Adelaide's Lament, which I didn't get to sing. So I thought I'd sing it tonight. It says here, the average unmarried female, basically insecure, due to some long frustration may act with psychosomatic symptoms difficult to endure, affecting the upper respiratory tract. In other words, just from waiting around for a plain little band of gold, a person can develop a cold. You can spray her wherever you figure the streptococci lurk. You can give her a shot for whatever she's got, but it just won't work. If she's tired of getting the fisheye from the hotel clerk, a person can develop a cold. It says here, the female remaining single, just in the legal sense, shows a neurotic tendency. See note, note. Oh no, would you look at that? Oh. With chronic organic syndromes. Chronic or hypertense, affecting the eye, the ear, the nose, and throat. In other words, just from wondering whether the wedding is on or off, a person can develop a cough. You can feed her all day with the vitamin A and the bromo fizz, but the medicine never gets anywhere near where the trouble is. If she's getting a kind of a name from herself and the name ain't his, a person can develop a cold. And furthermore, just from stalling the wedding trip, a person can develop a grip. When they get on the train to Niagara, and she can hear church bells chime. And the compartment is air-conditioned, and the mood's a blood. Then they get off at Saratoga for the 14th time. A person can develop a grip, the post-nasal grip, with the wheezes and the sneezes and the sinus. It's really a pip. From the lack of community property to the feeling she's getting too old, a person can develop a bad cold. Now, I'm not saying that I don't feel sorry for Adelaide, but let's be real for a moment. She does in fact have someone, even if he is a bit hesitant to propose marriage, and even if he is a bit of a common criminal. But she has someone. Now, I'm not saying that being single is an incredibly awful affair, but it's not the happiest affair either. Of course, I'm sure the same could be said about relationships. But, you know, I'm at this weird phase in my life where I'd like to have somebody, but I'm also about to graduate college, and who knows where I'll end up, so a relationship doesn't really seem like the smartest option. But then I see all those cute couples and their posts on social media. You know, all the stuff that makes you want to puke, but you also wish you were experiencing it. Yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. But still, give me that thing called love. I want it. Give me that thing called love. I need it. Highs and lows, tears and laughter. Give me happy ever after. Give me that thing called love. Give me that thing called love. I'm free now. Give me that thing called love. I see now, fly dove, sing sparrow. Give me Cupid's famous arrow. Give me that thing called love. Now I don't care if there are nobody, 'cause in my heart there'll be a somebody to love me. I want it. Give me that thing called love. I need it. Here I am, Saint Valentine. My bags are packed. I'm first in line. Aphrodite, don't forget me. Romeo, wait, Juliet. Fly dove, sing sparrow. Give me fat boy's famous hero. Give me that you think called Now, I don't mean to throw a pity party here, but indulge me for a moment. You see, part of what I think has attracted me to these female characters is that in their songs, they get to sing about feelings of being heartbroken and being rejected. And, you know, just feeling not so great in the lovey-dovey department. Guys don't talk about that kind of stuff nearly enough. I mean, guys always have to put up a tough front. And, you know, men like to be the it guy. I mean, at least I do. And you know, sometimes it's very hard to separate a performer from a person. What do I mean by that? Well, when I'm on stage, people seem to really like me. I mean, I'm a funny guy. But what happens when I'm off the stage? You know, for the 2+ hours that I'm out there giving it my all on the stage, it is absolute bliss. Because for a moment, I don't have to confront my own reality. And you know, sometimes it's easier for me to articulate things when I'm on a stage than it is for me to articulate them in my own personal life. So, when you're out here, it's great. But what happens when the show ends? And the curtain comes down. And the audience leaves. And the magic vanishes away. And you're left alone. Party's over. It's time to call it a day. They've burst your pretty balloon and taken the moon away. Now you must wake up. All dreams must end. Take off your makeup. Party's over. It's all over, my friend. I was introduced to that song the same night that I was introduced to a tour de force one-woman show titled Elaine Stritch at Liberty. It's a tour de force performance that chronicles Elaine's entire life. I have since watched it at least 200 times, and that is not an exaggeration. In it, she talks openly and candidly about her failures in the theater, failures in her love life, her struggles with alcoholism and diabetes, and her fear of being alone. There's a story that she told in the one-woman show that really kind of stuck with me, and it really illustrates what I'm trying to explain here. So Elaine was starring in the Broadway musical Sail Away, and one day after a matinee performance, she was in her dressing room, and in walks Richard Burton. Yes, the Richard Burton. And he says to her, "You know, Elaine, I've seen you around New York several times, and not once have I ever turned my head. But halfway through your last number, I almost had an orgasm." And then he kissed her on both cheeks and he exited the dressing room. And Elaine turned and looked at herself in her dressing room mirror, and she started to cry. Elaine understood the power she had as Elaine Stritch the performer, but was unsure of what she had to offer as Elaine Stritch the person. Elaine taught me so much about courage and the idea of just to keep moving on. And when you fall, you dust yourself off and you just keep going. I mean, there is no one as fierce as Elaine Stritch. And you know, this sounds kind of crazy, but I like to think of Elaine Stritch is my guardian angel of musical theater, holding my hand as I try to navigate through this crazy world known as show business. As I said, there's no one as fierce as her. And I'd be lucky if I could achieve half the level of fierceness that she did. And so on that note, I'd like to propose a toast to Elaine Stritch, the fiercest of them all. Here's to the ladies who lunch. Everybody laugh. Lounging in their caftans and planning a brunch on their own behalf. Off to the gym, then to a fitting, claiming they're fat and looking grim, 'cause they've been sitting, choosing a hat. Does anyone still wear a hat? I'll drink to that. Here's to the girls who play smart. Aren't they a gas? Rushing to their classes in optical art, wishing it would pass. Another long, exhausting day, another $1,000, a matinee, a pinter play, perhaps a piece of Mahler's. I'll drink to that. And one for Molly. Here's to the girls who play wife. Aren't they too much? Keeping house but clutching a copy of life just to keep in touch. The ones who follow the rules and meet themselves at the schools, too busy to know that they're fools. Aren't they a jam? I'll drink to them. Let's all drink to them. All right. So, I couldn't end this evening. Hold on, so I'm going to sing one more song. Oh dear, my button. Ooh, it popped off. Anyways, so these lyrics are beyond me. So I've got my lyrics here, but anyways, so if you see me with my phone, that's what I'm doing. I'm not texting during the middle of my own performance. Anyways, I wanted to say thank you. And there's particular people I want to thank first. First of all, I have to thank the woman who gave birth to me, who's in row G. Where are you? You just made her night. All right. Now, I also have to thank the incredible faculty and staff, the Department of Theater at Texas Christian University, who have shaped me, molded me, given a boy from Alabama his biggest theater dream, and for allowing me to do this tonight. And on that note, Mr. Alan Shorter, so much more than play the piano, which is already a heck of a lot, but still, he's the associate chair, he's a professor, he's a musical director, he directs, he do everything. And he's an advisor, and a damn good one. He's my advisor, in case you didn't know. Woo! Yes, would not have survived college without this man right here. And then finally, I have to thank my darling friends, my lovely classmates. Oh, look at all these freshmen right here, I'm gonna cry. So many of you who have grown with me, have been here for my last year, or who have shared so much with me, and I am so thankful that you were a part, and are still going to be a part, of my journey. You know, when I'm up here, when I'm thinking about all the ladies that have come before me, and I'm thinking about all the brilliant artists that are sitting in this room that I get to perform with, you know, the theater is frickin' awesome. And I'm so happy to be a part of it because my heart feels so good. My soul feels so enriched. And you know, I'm about to graduate soon. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But one thing I do know, those feelings that I just talked about, as long as those feelings remain, I'll be exactly where I'm meant to be. I'm broke, but I'm happy. I'm poor, but I'm kind. I'm short, but I'm healthy. Yeah. I'm high, but I'm grounded. I'm sane, but I'm overwhelmed. I'm lost, but I'm hopeful. Baby, what it all comes down to is that everything's gonna be fine, fine, fine. 'Cause I've got one hand in my pocket and the other one is giving a high five. I feel drunk, but I'm sober. I'm young and I'm underpaid. I'm tired, but I'm working, yeah. I care, but I'm restless. I'm here, but I'm really gone. I'm wrong and I'm sorry, baby. What it all comes down to is that everything's gonna be quite alright. 'Cause I've got one hand in my pocket and the other one is flicking a cigarette. I don't really smoke. Woo! What it all comes down to is that I haven't got it all figured out just yet. focused. I'm great but I'm wise. I'm hard but I'm friendly, baby. I'm sad but I'm laughing. I'm brave but I'm chicken shit. I'm sick but I'm pretty, baby. What it all comes down to is that no one's got it figured out just yet. But I've got one hand in my pocket and the other one's playing a piano. And shorter I'm better. What it all comes down to, my friends, yeah, is that everything is just fine, fine, fine. 'Cause I've got one hand in my pocket and the other one is hailing a taxi cab.